Welcome to the Wealthy SAP Consultant Podcast with your host, Anita Anello, where we empower SAP consultants to deliver premium services by showcasing their expertise to the world. In each episode, we dive deep into strategies, tips, and success stories to help SAP consultants like you elevate your consultancy game, attract high-paying clients, and maximize your revenue potential. Get ready to unlock the secrets to success in the SAP consulting world and position yourself as a top-tier consultant. To connect further and explore personalized strategies for your consulting business, schedule a strategy call with our team by clicking the link below. Enjoy the show. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the next episode of the Wealthy SAP Consultant. So I have my friend Leah here today, and we're just going to have a conversation about a couple of things that we have going on in the marketplace. So super excited to chat with you guys today.
Anita, thank you so much for having me here today. So excited to speak with you, to learn a little bit more about your audience as well, and how hopefully I am able to help and serve them, and more about really all the amazing things that you have been working on. Yeah.
It's been a
So
lot. Yeah, go ahead.
it has been so much. I'm not sure, like, if I would love to, maybe for folks maybe in my world as well who don't know you as much, I would love to maybe share a little bit more of the greatness that we are in, the presence of greatness that we are in. So for folks who don't know, I think this is helpful. Anita Anello, Anello. If you want to LinkedIn stalker, I would highly encourage it. But just as a brief overview of just an incredible career, Anita is a speaker. She's an author, a highly sought after consultant to 100,000 to $100 million companies. So an incredible range. Anita used to be a successful corporate consultant for big businesses. Then she turned her attention to homeschooling for her kids, one of whom I just met. So adorable, so sweet, before launching her own profitable business. About 2 years ago, she and her husband's health took a bit of a drastic turn, which resulted in unexpected hospital stays and a job loss, all within the same week. Oof, oh man, you can put a me in the chat if you've ever had those kinds of seasons in your life. Those are tough seasons to weather. But their household was going through a pretty rough patch, to be sure, and the stress levels were understandably incredibly high. Finances were tight. All of that changed when she discovered how to do 6 and 7-figure days using virtual events. Called by industry leaders and experts as the queen of coaching and consulting, and with 20 plus years of helping 100 million to $1 billion companies increase their impact and income. She's consulted and coached over 10,000 companies and has been a featured speaker on financial summits, numerous podcasts, featured authors for her debt-free story in The Zone magazine, and featured speaker on TCA Live 2024, which is a copywriting academy event by Ray Edwards. Oof. For folks who know, you know who Ray Edwards is. So clients pay $250,000 for just one VIP day with Anita, where she consults with businesses on how to scale their company exponentially. Not incrementally, folks, exponentially. So when you listen to her teach, you will immediately recognize that she is one of the most masterful communicators, strategic problem solvers, and teachers you have ever heard. Anita has a unique ability to hear what's not being said and help her clients use wisdom to have the breakthrough they deserve. If you're ready to have more impact, more income, and most of all, more fun, please welcome Anita Anello to the show.
Thank you, Leah. That's so sweet. Oh, it's so fun to kind of hear a little bit of our story told by somebody else. So let me just kind of dive in and unpack that a little bit. So as you know, just from going over my bio, I had a super successful career at SAP. Couple of things that I did is I headed up professional services and then moved over into escalation management. And in that time that I was there, that long period of time, my team was responsible for helping all the channel partners add 10,000 net new names to SAP into our ecosystem. I also was able to personally shepherd hundreds of these escalation projects because statistics say that software projects, ERP software projects, usually about 70% of those go into escalation at any point in time. So, for anybody who's listening, the definition of an escalation, somewhere along an implementation project, that the project gets over budget, behind schedule. Many times it can get to like on the verge. The communication is broken down so much between the customer and the channel partner that they might even be on the verge of lawsuit.
Oh my goodness. Who wants to avoid that? Right. You can type it. Yes, please. Avoid that. That's
Awesome.
terrifying.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So one of the things that had happened as I had launched my own business about 6 years ago, you mentioned I was homeschooling. Yep, we've homeschooled for like 15 years, but about 6 years ago, I started launching businesses because I had previously not only been a successful corporate exec, but I had been an entrepreneur before. And as my kids started getting older, I was kind of getting restless to get back in the game and do some different things. So my businesses were going okay. The bulk of our income was coming from my husband. And about 2.5 years ago, we had a situation in our household where he went in for an outpatient procedure, was supposed to be done in about an hour, a couple hours, whatever that was. And about an hour later, he ended up in the emergency room and spent a week in the cardiac wing, which was a huge shock to us. His body was not doing very well, as you could imagine. And in that scenario, we had no idea what was going on. He wasn't tuned in to his body enough to see the triggers that were happening. But as doctors were so clear to us that we needed to take immediate medical action and make some big lifestyle changes. While he was in the hospital, one of the things that happens is I was on the phone with his business partner, and he's like, Anita, I'm so sorry. I know this is bad timing, but actually, we were supposed to stop payroll for your husband last week, and we're going to have to do that this week. And I was kind of like, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? Right? So in that season, kind of went on a journey. We had to figure some things out, both for him to be able to get him healthy and really genuinely to help him stay alive. We were at that level. And so I started reaching out to my network of people that I knew and started really up leveling uh, not even just my skill set, but honing in on what I knew that I knew that I could help clients do. So as I started reaching out to people, I started making those connections again, and in that discovered the system that I use now, which is called the de-escalation breakthrough formula that helps customers get out of escalation and back into regular rhythm with their projects so that they can really resolve conflicts, get back on schedule, get their budget back in line, and then be able to go live. And the whole idea that everybody implements software projects and products is because they want to be able to increase their revenues and serve their customers better. So the faster that we can help people do that, the better.
Wow. I mean, what a journey, Anita, to get to where you are now. Holy. And, you know, I'm so pleased to hear that your husband, it sounds like, is on the mend, like doing so well now, thanks to you as a loving wife, which is so amazing as well. But I think that really how that whole journey has led you to where you are now and having just such a massive impact to help so many business. I had no idea. What was it, 70% of the businesses have like an escalation need?
Yeah.
Holy
Yeah.
wow.
And they can,
Yeah.
escalations can be a couple things. They can be more on, like if there was a scale.
Mhm.
Any escalation is serious. Let's just be
Oh,
clear.
yeah. Yeah.
Because when a multi-million-dollar project for a billion-dollar organization,
Mm.
multiple millions-dollar projects for billion-plus-dollar organizations, when those projects get off track, you can
Mm.
imagine, Leah, how quickly the money
Yeah.
is going out the door
Mm.
and not helping them to get the desired outcome that they want. As a matter of fact, one of the clients, just one that I had in the last couple of years, immediately upon engaging with me, we were able to save them almost $1 million. I was just doing some math the other day. It was $924,000 of savings right off the bat by getting some things turned around in their organization.
That's wild. Well, congratulations. That's just such a phenomenal testament to how impactful you are, is
Right.
really what I'm hearing with that. And I think you had also mentioned that there's specifically in the SAP world, there's like a timeline for like a shift in the services. I think you had mentioned that. Can you tell us a little bit more about that? Like what that
Yeah,
means?
absolutely. Yeah. So there's a couple of products. If people are in the SAP world, they know what
Yeah.
we're talking about. There are a couple of products like in every software organization that are being what's called sunsetted. And that just simply means support is stopping for some different product lines. And so what happens when a client is in that mode is that they need to get off an older product and it could be any product out there. This is not product specific, but they have to get off of the older version, right? It's kind of like if you had an old iPhone that doesn't really work anymore because it can't be upgraded. It's the same kind of thing. I got to get off the old device or the old software or whatever it is because support is stopping for that element. And then I need to get on to the new element. Now, oftentimes in these big software projects, what's happening when they're sunsetting products, sometimes there's a path to migration.
Mhm.
Sometimes that path, like for instance, what we call in the software industry an upgrade, it's a clear path. You go and take it. Might be a little bit of uncomfortableness along the way, but you do it anyway and you get your business back up and running. But what's happening right now is um, just like we see in some of the other industries, right? Like there's a company out there called ClickFunnels. They do a phenomenal job of creating sales funnels. And when ClickFunnels went from version 1.0 to 2.0, they created a whole new platform. Okay.
Mhm.
This
Yeah.
is kind of what's happening in the SAP world. There's these new cloud-based offerings that are helping businesses run more efficient than ever before, right? And so, because when you're dealing with a company like SAP, they're the top of the top, like they're the creme de la creme of being able to
Yeah.
serve those companies that are up at the highest levels of revenue and volume and all that kind of stuff. So they're always innovating, which is always great news. But in that, sometimes if I'm a customer that hasn't upgraded in a while, I haven't kind of kept up, it can be a little bit difficult. And so one of the things, as a matter of fact, one of the offerings that we have now is a program where we take customers from an older version of SAP. It's called SAP ECC. And if you know that name, you're on that product. And then move those customers over into some cloud offerings. There's a couple of different options. Now, in those cases, one of the things that we can do is save them like $7 million plus and take the migration path down from like years to months.
Oh my, wow. That is amazing. And I'm just going back to that percentage, right? That stat that you shared. If there's a sunsetting that's happening and that 70% on average of migrations turn to an escalation, and for just that one client that you mentioned, that you help save them 1 million versus 7 million.
Yeah,
That is just because when you have, I mean, my understanding for anybody who's using SAP, there's just such a huge supply chain. Like there's so much complexity within it. So if you're down, if your site in this whatever migration is down for an hour,
yeah.
15 minutes, how much that can cost you.
Millions, millions.
Yeah.
For some clients, I mean, I've had clients where they did $1 million in transactions every day. So if they're down for a day or a slice of that, and
Yeah.
they're considered kind of like a medium-sized enterprise. So can you imagine as you scale up to the higher end of medium-sized enterprises to large enterprise to global enterprises, the
Yeah.
money and the dollars and the transaction volume just keeps going up. Imagine if Amazon is down for an hour.
It's just thinking that.
Imagine if Amazon is down for like 15 minutes.
Like 5 minutes on Black Friday. Good
Right.
luck.
Yeah,
It's
like
just-
the volume of transactions that we're talking about in some of
yeah.
these clients. And so, right, so any level of now in a lot of times in those cases there's a lot of redundancy there's happening, there's backup that's happening, there's fail safes that's always going on.
Right.
But
Yeah.
sometimes those things don't work.
Yes. Yes.
Sometimes other elements outside of our planning and control switch
Yeah.
things and then things don't work. Like, I don't know, maybe like a global pandemic that shuts down the whole supply chain. I mean, sometimes we never thought those things would happen, and that now we've all experienced that at a really high level.
Yeah. And what I think is really, I mean, so amazing, Anita, like with your wealth of experience, you're able to be nimble. Like you have such a playbook and so many like frameworks and points of reference to understand what you need to adapt. This is what I'm hearing anyways, and like reading your bio and knowing you just a little bit, just is like how you're both your breadth of knowledge in like the different clients that you've worked with and your depth of knowledge for specifically what you can do with SAP to really optimize its tool and functionality, right? Because what I think, I mean, within the tech world, certainly that I have seen, is that what can happen sometimes is a lot of folks don't even realize how powerful the tools that they have and the many different ways that you can like adapt them to really maximize what your return is.
Yeah.
I would I would love to hear from like what would you say are some of the things that are holding people back?
Well, if we're talking about clients, there's kind of two categories of people that are out there that we're talking to. If they're an SAP client that is holding off on moving off an old platform and moving towards, for all the reasons that happen, there's fear, sometimes there's costs involved, sometimes there's the unknown, sometimes is I think on my mind I have 2 solid years. It's no big deal. I'll take that time. There's all these kinds of things that come into play. And so delaying the process of moving forward would be one. But the other that we speak to are those SAP consultants that have been kind of stuck in that realm of charging by the hour low billable rates, and they're also stuck in kind of this in between stage. So Leah, on LinkedIn all of the time, for instance, I get pinged dozens of times every single week. Hey, you want to come and work on this like $65 an hour, $100 an hour, $200 an hour project? And I'm like, oh, no, sorry. I mean, I'm like probably the most expensive SAP consultant
Mhm.
that's on the planet right now. And I have a team to come in and be the experts to do the elements of the implementation that we need to know all the different softwares for all the different industry verticals and all that kind of stuff. But one of the things that is I get a kick out of is watching these LinkedIn posts because I think you and I had a conversation about it one time and you said maybe you want to share what you thought it was like if my level of expertise and I get pitched to do a certain project for 65 or 100 or $200 an hour. What did you say to me one time?
Oh, it's just that's just laughable. Like it's just I mean, it's just it's at that point it's just hilarious.
Yeah. Yeah. You're like, Anita, it's kind of like somebody trying to hire an intern to be the CFO.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It really is what that would be. I
Yeah.
mean, it's just it's absurd when there's that disconnect when people really don't see essentially like the value,
Mhm.
right? I
Yeah.
mean, it would kind of be like taking I'm not a big car person, but like a Ferrari and having it perpetually in a school zone where we you just can't actually use the car. I mean, it has the capacity to be
Right.
a Ferrari, but you're just limiting it, right? Like the box that you were putting it within is just wild.
Yeah.
And I think what's really amazing what I'm hearing, right, for the system that you have created is how you're really able to actually use the Ferrari,
Mhm.
right? Like you in implementing the system and framework, you can actually optimize so that you can save millions of dollars for your clients.
Yeah.
That's wild, you know? So kudos.
Yeah.
It's
Thank you.
amazing.
Isn't it so cool to think that at the level that we can impact somebody's business and being
Yeah.
able to save them? And I was on one project that was I don't know, gosh, $3.6 million dollars over budget and many years over schedule and all that kind of stuff. And we ended up just being able to set them on pace. Nowadays, now that they're live, they could like double their business in 2 to 5 years. I mean,
Amazing.
that's that because they've put an SAP system that has the designed business processes, the best practices in their industry, and be able to just go like crazy and serve
Yeah.
and the profit margins. I love that. Like that's where I get super
Yeah.
excited to be able to get them out of escalation. And maybe we'll talk about that next is kind of like the escalation process, but get them out of that conflict arena and then back into being able to just scale their business and run with it the way that I believe that all businesses are designed to run.
Oh my, you know, and also like the corporate world will tell you to just tread water, right? Like batten down the hatches, hold down the fort and hope that the boat won't rock a little, we won't get one more wave to essentially put us under, right?
Yeah.
That's what the corporate world will tell us, right? And so they'll get like, they'll try and get an intern essentially to fix the sinking ship. Because that intern will be like $65 an hour, who are great. I mean, fantastic. I've hired lots of interns.
Yeah.
But the point is that what you're really saying is what I'm hearing for the system and how you're able to apply it is you can actually not just hold down the fort and hope for the best, but you can actually grow
Yeah.
exponentially the business. And the corporate world really tells us to just say, like, hold tight, hope for the best. I mean, I hear this from, ambitious professionals that I work with, right? They're told to just like, you know what, you're employed, right? You have an opportunity right now. The market and the economy is really unstable. We don't know what's happening. You should just like be content.
Mm.
And really, what I know, and certainly what I'm hearing for yourself and the system that you're describing, is that it's not about treading water. It's about actually growing,
Yeah.
actually having that ability to not only like patch all the holes, we're going to continue with this boat analogy, right? Right? But like make sure that you have like a steady ship so that you can, go to your North Star and actually be on track to grow whatever you're wanting to.
Yeah.
So, so important, Anita. I just felt like that was really critical to highlight for the opportunities that people don't even realize are out there.
Most, a study of history would tell you that most of the time when there is like a either perceived or actual economic downturn, that's when the biggest leaders in the industry usually pull ahead.
Yes. Yeah.
Is they take an opportunity when it's down because they've done things like they've saved, they have the assets, they have the resources to be able to say, now's the time when there's some instability to be able to go and grow, right?
And I mean, I firmly believe that if you can thrive when there is instability, just imagine what you can accomplish when it's like a green pastures, right?
Yeah.
Like
Well,
just
if we think about it too, if we have the ability to help a business,
yeah,
I think it's Russell Brunson that said
yeah,
it, and there was a mentor before him. I can't think of his name. Maybe it'll come to me while we're talking. That said, like, we have a moral, if we can help somebody 2 to 10x their business, like we
yeah,
have a moral obligation to bring that service to the marketplace and be able to help them do that because, and I love that. Like that's uh,
yeah,
years ago, my stepson had asked me when he was real tiny, he was maybe like 10 years old. He's like, do you like what you do? Does everybody, aren't people yelling when you meet them? Because think about it. If they're in escalation, there's a lot of conflict going on. There's a lot of stress going on. People are worried about losing their jobs. Like there's all these different things that are happening in that. And I was like, well, yeah, honey, people do yell, but it's never directed towards me. They're just frustrated or they're afraid or whatever, right? All these different elements that happen. I was like, but I love it because I know that I know that I can know that I can help them. And I know
yes.
that I can help them come out of that, right? Doing hundreds of these over more than 20 years. I know that I can help them get out of that conflict, um, help them to be able to communicate better, understand the way that I'm going to use it in my framework that I use for life, the way that God's designed us in our personality styles to be able to communicate with one another and the way that we all communicate a little bit differently, be able to resolve those conflicts and communicate better and get the project back on track. And then from there, we just go for it and just go and thrive. And so it's so amazing to put somebody before you, a company before you, coach the executive team and help them really reach the goals that they're really designed and destined to meet.
Love it. And you know what? That reminds me of one of my favorite quotes. It's by Jim Rohn, and he says that if you can communicate skillfully, you can work miracles.
Oh
And
yeah.
sometimes when you are in those scenarios and there's so much tension and there's so many delays, it can feel like you need a miracle, right? Like that's sometimes how it can feel with, when you're actually boots on the ground and in the trenches. And I think for that reason, like the work that you do with your de-escalation breakthrough framework is just so so important, especially as we're looking at this horizon, right? For a really strong, like a clear line in the sand for products being sunset. Man, it's so important.
Yeah, and
And
that's just one, right? That's just one of the products that's being sunsetted that we mentioned earlier. There's others.
yeah,
And so it's important to pay attention to that. And
mhm,
not the other part that's important, this is like another thing that I'm just thinking that kind of holds people back. both
Yeah.
independent consultants and companies, is that if they wait to the end, they wait to like the bitter end until they get closer for whatever logical reasons. Like, with all respect, I know, having talked to so many of these clients over so many years, I know that it feels like logically it's the right thing to do to wait. The challenge with that is you take a normal time frame to be able to walk through all the steps that it takes to maybe re-engineer your your business processes, your license metric, maybe add a add-on solution to make the business more efficient, all those kinds of things, get the people on board, all that kind of stuff. When you try to condense that and make the time shorter, can we see how in life all of the time it just creates more and more and more of like a pressure cooker?
Yeah.
And then you add a project that gets off track. And I'm seriously, I have talked to so many people over the years. Usually, my sweet spot clients are the presidents and C-suite of the organization, but many times their whole management staff or them themselves are like, we don't pull this rabbit out of the hat, like we're going to lose our jobs, right?
Yeah.
It's serious,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
We're not talking about a project that's maybe 5 minutes over schedule and $10 over budget, right? We're talking about millions of dollars of business, billions of dollars of business on the line. And so being able
Mhm.
to equip the consultants that are helping these projects is my heart's passion, my heart's desire,
Yeah.
and then also help those companies to be able to do that as well.
Yeah, I mean, I was just gonna ask, what else holds people back? And really, time, right? Thinking that you either have more time and that you can just wait until like the very last day. And that is just never a good idea. I mean, it's kind of like if you've ever gone on vacation and tried to book last minute flights where you want to leave tomorrow.
So the other thing that's really interesting in that is like the corporate world
Mhm.
tells us things like you got to hustle, you got to grind, you got to be so
Yeah.
busy, you got to work an 80-hour work week. As a consultant, you're not successful because you got to bill your 40 hours a week, then you got to do your normal job on top of that. And then when you add to that the pressure that happens with, here's what happens to our clients in every form of big software project. It can be SAP or any product in that space. It doesn't really matter. But we're asking our clients to do their normal job. Let's just pretend they all work a 40-hour work week. Okay. Right? Some people will get that joke a little bit later. So we're asking them to do their normal job, and then we're loading on top of that. Go ahead and do an SAP implementation or a migration or go up to a new product or all that kind of stuff. The intensity
Mhm.
and the stamina and the stress and the pressure that's in these projects for the client side is really, really intense. And even if there's a big channel partner with lots of resources and lots of people, SAP people and consultants and everything, even if there's a whole pack of people that are there to help them, it still is a heavy, heavy burden on our clients. And maybe they're even thinking in their mind, I remember how hard my last SAP implementation was, and you want me to start that all over again? Hey, that's a real thing. It happens in Oracle, it happens in Microsoft, it happens with Salesforce, it happens in all our big heavy hitter software companies at that level because we're really doing some heavy lifting, and decisions that we make up at the top of the supply chain have a downstream effect on our entire supply chain. So we have to get things right. Um, but the point in saying that is when we think that we have extra time to be able to do this in our already busy schedules, is really a little bit of, it's like a limiting belief, and it's a story that we tell ourselves. I
Yes.
don't
Oh,
have time right now, so then I'll wait to do the thing until later. I don't have time right now to craft a high ticket offer to serve my audience better based on value and an outcome that I can get for somebody else. I don't have time right now to be able to engage in getting off at one product and moving to another. I don't have time or money right now to be able to, whatever it is, to make that tweak in my business. But I know that the more we lean in, and do that, the sooner the better, because then we actually have more bandwidth to be able to weather the storm when those bumps come along the way.
Yes. Oh my, yes. It's just, it's so important to recognize, the time invested is just an infinite return, right? Because if you're getting that time back for your future self or your future pain that you're going to avoid, oh my goodness, like that is just worth that weight in gold.
Yeah, we often
Like,
think of it as people. We often think that our future is always going to be rosy. It's always going to be easier, better, faster, whatever. And
yeah.
I'm sure you know from your level of expertise, like our brain plays tricks on us sometimes
Mm.
you know, that it's actually not easier when we get there. And then we look back and we'd be like, darn it, I should have done this thing way back here. So,
Yeah, it's so important. Well, I would love to know, like, what should listeners do next?
oh, the best thing to do is if you're an SAP client that's in the middle of an escalation, just book a
Yeah.
call and let's chat and see if I can help you. If my team and I can serve you. I belong to a global organization and we have SAP implementations and escalation projects going on all around the world. So if that's a good fit and you want to even just see if it's a good fit, the first thing to do is book a call. We'll make sure and put the link to book a call in the show notes. The other thing to do is if you're an SAP independent consultant and you're ready to raise your rates, you've had some experience, you know what you're doing, you're ready to be able to increase your revenue that comes in and decrease the time that you're actually billing out, decrease the workload that you have more time and money freedom in your life, then you go ahead and book a strategy call as well. We'll be sure to put a link in the show notes so that we can have a chat and see if we can help you there as well.
Amazing. So many ways that you're able to serve and help people. That's just so phenomenal. I
Yeah.
guess it's great. Well, Anita, I loved our chat today. It's always so great to connect. And I also just, I'm inspired by your journey and your story. And I think it's just really wonderful how you're able to share your gifts with the world today.
And thanks, Leah. I always want to say thank you so much for the way that you show up and serve the corporate community, helping people communicate better, using your levels of expertise to be able to unpack ways that they can be clearer and then be able to scale up in their business. So great
Yeah,
job. Thank you so much for the way that you're serving your community as well.
truly a pleasure.
All right, everybody. Thanks for being with us on this episode of the Wealthy SAP podcast, and stay tuned for our next episode. Well, that's a wrap for today's episode of the Wealthy SAP Consultant Podcast with your host, Anita Anello. We hope you gained valuable insights and strategies to take your consulting business to new heights. Remember, by showcasing your expertise and delivering premium services, you can attract high-paying clients and increase your revenues while serving your customers at the highest levels. To dive deeper into implementing these strategies and overcoming challenges in your consulting journey, schedule a strategy call with our team by clicking on the link below. Stay tuned for our next episode where we'll continue to provide you with actionable tips and advice to excel in the SAP consulting industry. Thank you for tuning in, and until next time, keep shining in your consulting business.